And I know that more people are going to continue to come in, and we will send out the recording afterwards. So just give it a couple more minutes. I am in Madison, Wisconsin. Well, I want to be respectful of the time for those who are here. So let's get started. My name is Elizabeth, and I am with Awaken Village Press. And in addition to being a book editor with Awaken Village, I'm also the facilitator of Awaken Your Book, which is our 5-month online group program that assists authors in completing their manuscripts. So this free workshop is designed to give you just a little taste of that, the 5-month workshop, and a sense of the way that we blend community with a little bit of teaching and guidance that's grounded in literary theory and kind of the procedure and process of what makes a compelling piece of writing. That's the background that I bring, having studied literature, and just books are really my world and have been since I was a little girl. So, okay, you're both in Costa Rica. Beautiful. And we do retreats in Costa Rica, and we have one coming up in October. So maybe we'll see some of you there. So, okay, so blending that kind of teaching, we don't assume that anyone knows how to write coming in. So we blend some teaching with community, and then everything that we do is intuitively guided. So really helping us all tap into our inspiration and intuition. And I think that's really the difference in the Awaken Village approach. It's not about getting caught up in how to do it just right, but really trusting yourself and trusting what spirit wants to come through in the story you're meant to be writing. So as far as what we're going to cover tonight, I've got about an hour worth of content for you, and we're going to be back the next 2 days at the same time. So day one is really just tapping in and getting clear on the message that wants to come through you. And I've got some journaling prompts to help us do that. And then the second half of tonight, I'm going to be showing you a structure. And this is just one idea, one possible structure you could use for the book you want to write. I'll show it to you tonight, and then overnight you can integrate it, you can sleep on it, and we'll come back to it tomorrow with an exercise that we're going to do. And we'll just play with the idea that you have for your book. What might it look like? How might you structure it? So just playing with working on an outline for your story. And then on the third day, you're going to have a chance to actually read something that you've written and receive feedback from me and anyone else who's here. So if you're watching the recording, if you're watching live, I really hope that you're able to get on live, especially for the third day, so that you can receive that one-on-one feedback and input. All right. One thing about, so for tomorrow, so by the end of tonight, I'm hoping that you have a good sense of some of the themes you might want to explore in your book. And then tomorrow, I'll ask you to bring an object related to one of those themes, and that we're going to use that in an exercise. So for example, if travel and exploration is one of the themes of my book, I might bring my passport and use that for the exercise. That's actually what I did the most recent time that we did this exercise in the full program. So just have that in the back of your mind. You'll want to bring an object with you tomorrow, or just have it close by. You don't have to know what it is yet. And it doesn't need to be like something crucially important to the theme, just something that's somehow related, even in some small way. And I trust that the themes that come through today are a big enough part of your life that you'll have some type of object in your living space related to the story you want to write. Okay, so having said that, before we get into our journaling, I want to start us with a short meditation. And just make sure you have your journal or wherever you're going to be writing. If it's typing in a document, but just have that ready to go so you don't have to, you can go straight into journaling once we are done with the meditation. I'm going to share some music. Actually, the music is for journaling. The meditation, I'm just going to speak, but I've got my little singing bowl. So hopefully you can hear this with the microphone. So get comfortable and close your eyes. And be fully present with the sound of my voice for the meditation. In this moment, begin to become fully grounded in yourself. And know that whatever you bring today, however you're feeling, is absolutely perfect and it's absolutely enough. You don't need to be perfectly inspired or perfectly rested or perfectly comfortable even to write. You can find creative expression exactly as you are right now. I want to invite you to place your hands on your heart and feel the creative life force within you. Feel your heart beating. Feel the air as it fills your lungs. Feel the movement of your chest. And know that as long as you're living and breathing, that creative energy resides within you. And with each breath, let your thoughts fall away. Know that you don't need to hang on to your thoughts because the creative energy resides in feeling and sensation. Your intuition is deeper than thinking. Your intuition is on a feeling and experiencing level. Be completely present with what's happening around you. If there are other sounds aside from my voice, if there's any scent in the air, notice the temperature of the air. And know that the more present you can become, the more that will allow you to connect with your creativity and what spirit wants you to know. And know that in any moment you can come back to this inspiration, this creative flow with this simple skill of being present. That's all you have to do. Remembering now that you have everything you need inside of you. When you hear the sound of the singing bowl again, I'll invite you to open your eyes, and I'm going to put the first journaling question in the chat. I will also read it out loud. I'm going to be playing some music. You'll have 5 minutes for each question. And I'm going to give some more instructions in a moment, but just take one last slow, smooth, deep breath, feeling that life force and really savoring it and connecting with it. Okay. Your first journaling prompt for the first 5 minutes. My purpose, my passion in life, the reason I am here is, and now there's a certain way that I want you to do this. I want you to start writing and don't stop. So that way of approaching it is going to help you get into green light thinking. So red light thinking is where we're analyzing and we're thinking, are our words good enough? I don't want you to analyze. I want you to just keep writing and let it flow. So green light thinking, whatever comes through, even if the words seem like they're maybe not so related to the question, just keep writing, keep the question in your mind, in your heart, and you'll come back to it. But keep writing until you hear me letting you know that the next question is coming. All right, 5 minutes starting now. My purpose, my passion in life, the reason I am here is. going to compress the timing slightly from what I first told you. We'll have 4 minutes per prompt. And the next one is what I have seen and experienced in life makes me uniquely qualified to write about. So, what have you seen and experienced in your life that makes you uniquely qualified to write your book? And what is the book that you are uniquely qualified to write based on your life experiences, what you've seen and experienced? I put that one in the chat for you as well. Definitely feel free to unmute or put something in the chat if you have any questions. And I hope you can hear the music once I play it again, but let me know if you can't. Okay, question number 3 of 4. The message I am here to share is.
असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मा अमृतं गमय ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मा अमृतं गमय ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति।
And the last question, what I would like my readers to learn from me is.
असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मा अमृतं गमय ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति। सग ग सा ग नि सा ग ग म प ग म ग म ग प म प ग म ग म ग सा सा म ग प ग म प नि प सा नि प म ग म ग प म
All right. So as we're concluding the journaling, one final prompt, looking back on what you've written, just write down anywhere between 3 and 6 themes that apply to your book project. So for example, I am working on a book of my own. And so mine might be sexuality, shame, self-acceptance, and freedom. So between 3 and 6 themes that apply to the book you're writing or want to write. And then when you're done, actually, can you let me know if you're ready or if you need a little more time? You can either put it in the chat or just unmute. Are we ready to move on to the next portion? So you might be, I think you're seeing on your screen a quote that is really very meaningful to me and very central to the approach that we take with Awaken Village. And it's a quote from Toni Morrison. And it says, if there's a book that you want to read, but it hasn't been written yet, then you must write it. And that is really just very central to the approach that we take. We really believe that each person has a unique story, and that story needs and deserves to be shared with the world. You never know whose life you will impact by putting your story out there. And so when we keep those stories to ourselves, we are really depriving the world of those lessons. So I hope that with what you just wrote in your journaling prompts, you began to get a feel for the story that you are uniquely here to share, that nobody else can write the book that you can write. And that's why you have to write it. All right, I am going to put up the hero's journey, which is the structure that I mentioned. So this is one option for how to structure your book. It is not the only option, but it's one that I really like to work with. And I will say a little bit about why once I get it on the screen. Okay, so there's a kind of text-based version I'm going to put up in a minute that has a little more detail about what the different stages are. But this, I like the visual representation. And if you can use the reactions at the bottom of your Zoom, or just put in the chat, is this something that you are familiar with? Have you heard of the hero's journey before, or is it brand new for you? So this structure comes from, well, it's a way of describing the stories, like the way that we just innately have been structuring the stories that we write. So looking back to epics like the Odyssey, you can really recognize some of these steps, you know, crossing the threshold, going out into the world, having all of these trials, and coming home, being transformed. But the end of the story is some kind of homecoming. You're coming back to the same place, but you're not the same person. Okay, yeah, Kahina, you're familiar with it. Beautiful. So it's really fun once you start to become familiar with the hero's journey. You start to see it everywhere. Okay. And Carmela says you can't see it. I'm sorry. So I hope maybe you'll be able to watch the recording and you'll have clearer video. Okay. And you haven't heard of the hero's journey. Okay. So I'll go through the steps. I actually have, there's a movie that really sums it up in a really fun way. So I'm going to just narrate this. I'll talk you through the steps so you get a feel for them. And again, the reason I'm showing you this is just to introduce it today, and then we're going to work with it a little bit when we come back tomorrow. So as I was saying before, once you are familiar with the hero's journey, you start to see it everywhere. If you're looking at it now, or you can even Google the hero's journey and you can find some images that depict it. But once you learn the steps, look out for it the next time you're watching a movie, reading a book. Even the 12 signs, the 12 houses of astrology, like the journey that you go on energetically as you go through them, 1 through 12, actually has some really interesting similarities to this. So you can find it a lot of places in the world around you if you pay attention. It's just a very, there are a lot of synchronicities I found. Okay, so I'm going to, okay, so I'll tell you about this movie. And I'm going to put up the 12 descriptions, and I won't read the whole thing to you, but I'll kind of talk you through it a little bit. And as you're listening, just have in the back of your mind, so you've got those themes for your book, and you've got maybe some idea of, you know, where does your story start and where does it end? So be thinking about, as you're listening to me, just think about for your story, like what is ringing a bell here as I talk through the phases, and you can jot down some notes if anything strong comes through for you. But you know, it doesn't have to be super detailed or structured, but just as you're getting those little hits of, oh, there was something like that in my story, just jot that down as it comes through for you. All right. So let me share an image with you. Actually, I don't know if I have this one open. Okay, we'll do this. Okay, so the 12 stages of the hero's journey. So the slide now that's up is just text. And it starts with the ordinary world. So the movie that I found that really sums this up in kind of a funny way is called Phone Booth, and it's starring Colin Farrell. I think it's from 2002. Has anybody seen it? Have you heard of it? I'm going to give some spoilers, but I won't tell you exactly how it ends, but it's just too good. It matches too well. So if you have seen it, you're going to be like, oh yeah, whoa. And if you haven't seen it yet, it's still worth watching. It's a really, really incredible performance. It's called Phone Booth. So Phone Booth with Colin Farrell. So the movie starts with his ordinary world, and you probably noticed this in just different books and different movies where the first opening scene is painting, um, just introducing you to the character and their life and painting that picture. So in this movie, Colin Farrell's character is, sorry, I have a whole document about this. Got that open. Okay. He's a publicist in New York City. He's like fast talking, wheeling and dealing. He's walking down the street. He's got good hair. He's got a fancy suit. He's smoking a cigarette, taking calls on his cell phone, and he's like bluffing, trying to negotiate deals. He has no integrity. He's just lying every time he gets on the phone, and he feels like he is infallible. So he's painting this very clear character, and we're getting introduced to that in his ordinary world. What is his everyday life? And we learn that every day he makes a phone call from this phone booth to talk with his mistress so that it won't show up on his cell phone call log and his wife won't find out. So his name is Stuart, the character. That's Stuart's ordinary world. So step 2, call to adventure. So one day, Stuart, he's just gotten off the phone. He's in this phone booth. He's just talked to his mistress. He hangs up and the phone rings. And people don't call phone booths, right? So it's weird, but he picks it up because that's what you do when the phone is ringing, right? And on the other end, there's this caller who knows his name and knows his wife's name and knows his mistress's name. So he just hangs up, right? So that's step 3. He refuses the call. Now, maybe you're seeing why this movie is so perfect. He's being called to do something and he says, no, I don't want to do it. I don't want to be on the phone with this weird guy who knows all these details about me. But then as soon as he hangs up the phone, he realizes, oh, maybe I shouldn't have done that because this guy has all these details about my life. Maybe I should have found out who that was. Well, the phone rings again and Stuart picks it up and he learns that this caller whose identity is not known, this creepy guy is trying to teach Stuart some kind of lesson. And so that's the transformation that Stuart goes on throughout this whole movie that takes place in a phone booth in New York City. So crossing the threshold, so you're meeting the mentor and you're crossing the threshold. So this creepy guy on the other end of the phone, in the case of this movie, that is the mentor. He's the one who's guiding Stuart on this journey where, you know, the lessons are yet to be revealed, but that's the mentor and who's in charge, who's guiding the direction. And then crossing the threshold is when Stuart decides he's going to play along with this guy. He's going to stay in the phone booth instead of hanging up and leaving. So just to go through those steps really quickly, catch us up to where we are. So you got the painting the picture of the ordinary world, call to adventure. This might be known as the inciting incident also, but you know, something happens where you're being asked to do something, you're being challenged in some way. Refusal of the call, you say, I can't do that. I don't want to do that. And then you meet this mentor that for some reason makes you feel that you can, or you want to, or you have to. And so then you cross the threshold, step 5, entering the unknown. And you go on this journey, which includes tests, enemies, and allies. So step 6 is often like, these steps are not necessarily equal in length. Tests, enemies, and allies has a lot of twists and turns. And this is the bulk of a lot of stories where there are just all of these challenges along the way. So going back to the phone booth movie, again, as Stuart is on the phone, he's approached by all of these people throughout the course of the movie. So there's like a guy delivering a pizza. There are some sex workers who want to use the phone to contact their clients. There are police officers who respond to the scene because this creepy guy on the other end of the phone is like threatening to shoot people. It turns out he's a sniper. He can actually see where this phone booth is located. And then Stuart's wife comes and his mistress shows up on the scene. So all of these people are coming through with, you know, different lessons to teach, different challenges that are all a part of this one main challenge, this one main theme. So remember the circle. There's a one main arc. And there are challenges along the way, but all together they create that arc. That's what all of the steps are doing together. That's what all of the challenges are doing together. So it's something that the main character has to learn or overcome, or a transformation that the main character undertakes that is providing that arc. Okay, and then approach to the inmost cave. So this is where it's a supreme challenge, an inner conflict, or facing a really grave danger. Um, and the character might face some of the same doubts and fears that they faced in the beginning. Um, so again, they feel that they just can't do it, but they have to in order to complete the journey and return back home transformed. So in the case of the movie, Stuart is trying to avoid telling the truth to his wife about the fact that he's been cheating. Approach the inmost cave, ordeal. Those are very related. The ordeal is the climax, and then reward, seizing the sword. That is where the main character does the thing that you thought you could not do, that they thought they could not do. So Stuart decides he has to tell the truth, because this guy on the other end of the phone is like threatening to start shooting people. He's like, all right, I'll just tell her that I cheated. He doesn't know how his wife will react. He thinks his marriage might be over, but he decides to tell the truth. And that is what the caller on the other end was trying to teach him. So Stuart is being transformed in this journey. Okay, and then the road back. So you're starting to go back home again, transformed. And it's almost like tying up the loose ends. So all the questions that were opened in the beginning are being resolved one by one. You can think of, if you think of your book as solving a problem, you have a statement of the problem in the beginning. What is the problem this book is going to solve? You take your reader on a journey, and you have a clear statement of the problem, and then step by step you show your reader the solution. So the road back, you're starting to tie up some of those loose ends. So in the case of the movie, Stuart realizes he cares about his wife. He doesn't want to ruin the relationship. He realizes he doesn't want to be unfaithful. He wants to start telling the truth. So the road back, he's kind of, he's going back toward his marriage with a different attitude. And then resurrection, again, this is why this movie is so perfect for this. Resurrection is death and rebirth, right? So in many movies, especially, you might notice, there's a point where you thought you knew how the movie would end, but then there's a plot twist. You thought you knew the resolution, and all of a sudden it's like, nope, it's not going to have a happy ending, or maybe not. And then, often it's resolved just when you think the character can't get out of it. They find a new and different, they call in new skills, new talents, maybe a new ally shows up, but just when you thought it was resolved, then you think all is lost, and then the character has to transform even more to solve the challenge. So in the movie, remember, Stuart told the truth. He is hoping his wife will forgive him, and then this caller, the police have found out where this crazy guy is calling from. So the caller says, okay, if the police come into my apartment, I'm just going to start, shooting people. Because remember, he's right up over where Stuart is in the phone booth. So Stuart says, just shoot me instead. He comes out of the phone booth, and we see him get shot, and we think we know what happened. But there is a resurrection. So that's why I'm telling you this. That's why I had to give you the spoilers. we think the main character died in the end of the movie, and it turns out that he's not dead. He was shot with rubber bullets by the police, and there's kind of an epilogue where his wife has forgiven him. There is a twist at the end of the movie. So there's a little more that happens that I'm not going to tell you. So if you haven't seen it, you can still watch. But I actually have a couple of pictures I'll show you quickly from the movie about just the transformation that the main character undertakes. But that the last step is the return with elixir. So the main character has risen to the challenge. The main character has solved the problem that was posed in the beginning of the book. You know, that in the case of the, you know, the classic texts, the main character might be coming home from, you know, victorious in a war and is celebrated when he returns back home. But there are plenty of ways to define this. Having that kind of archetype in the back of your head can help you think about, okay, what does that look like for my story? So what I'll say, because I realize that it's not completely obvious how this applies to every kind of book necessarily. So if your book is a novel or a memoir, it might be somewhat obvious. You might have some ideas already. And if you're feeling inspired after we get off of this workshop tonight, you might even just want to spend a few minutes just creating a rough outline with these 12 steps and just see how the stages of your story might map to this structure. But if your book is from a different genre, so if it's more along the lines of self-help, wellness, how-to, those kinds of books, you might be sitting there scratching your head going, I just don't know how this applies to me. And not that it has to necessarily. However, I think this structure can apply to just about any kind of book. And the reason that it's effective is it makes, you know, it makes your content into a story with narrative tension. So one reason somebody keeps turning the page is because they want to find out how it ends. How is the problem solved? They want the transformation that you are promising when you map out that ordinary world, step one, and you then introduce the call to adventure, step two. You know, how is the main character being asked to change? Another way you can think about it is if your book, the main character of your book might be you, right? If it's a memoir, or, you know, if it's a novel, you have a main character. But even if it doesn't match either one of those, if you're like, I don't know who my main character is, the reader could be your main character. So if you're not sure who your main character is and how they evolve throughout your book, think about how you want your reader to be transformed over the course of reading your book. And, you know, how are they changing as they're implementing what you're telling them in the book? Who's the reader when they first pick up the book and when they open to the very first page? Why do they pick it up? What do they want from it? And then who do you want them to be by the time they finish reading? And what is the transformation that they go through? So I just want to show you, and we're going to have time for questions if you have any before we wrap up. Okay, so here is, I'm just going to put this up briefly. It's from Google Images. So this is the beginning of this phone booth movie that I've been telling you about, right? He's kind of looking put together. He's got good hair, looking kind of calm. And then by the end of the movie, all right, there's like bullet holes in the glass and he's like sweating and he's just desperate. So it is a good movie, just like the transformation and how that he goes through and how he embodies so much drama while the whole movie takes place in this tiny space, right? Like there's no change of scenery. There's not even that many, you know, other characters other than this one guy. So very cool study in just in storytelling, really. And if you want to kind of integrate the themes of the hero's journey, that is a good movie to explore it with. But that's the end of what I'm presenting. I would like to know if you have questions about the hero's journey. before we wrap up, questions about the hero's journey, questions about how to apply it. And if you would like to share a little bit about the book idea that you are working with, I would love to hear that. Oh, okay, there's something in the chat. Let me look here. Okay. Kahina has background noise. Carmela, I know you said you had weak internet. Yeah, if you want to type a little bit about your book, what are you working on? What do you think you might want to work on? And was the hero's journey useful? And of course, if you have any questions. Okay, Carmela says, I have an idea of a children's book. I thought the teacher was going to be the hero, but now you've helped me to look at the possibility for the students to change. Yeah, that's something to consider. And I guess, yeah, think about, is it the teacher who goes on the transformation, or is it the students who are being transformed? Think about, and that's where it's useful to think about your reader and what you want them to learn. So if the reader is a child, maybe more identified with the students, and it's the students that are transforming, and how are you showing evidence of that from the beginning of the book to the end of the book? Kahina says, I love how the hero's journey applies to absolutely everything. Yes. Sometimes I feel like I talk about it too much, but it's just so fascinating. And you really do start to see it everywhere once you get familiar with it. So I know that it was a lot to take in. We will be back the next 2 days if you find that you have questions about it. And also the recording is going to be going out to the Awaken Village list. And if you reply to that email, I will receive it. So if you have questions, just respond to that email, and I'm happy to answer if something comes up as you're integrating all of this. Anything else before we wrap up? Okay, Kahina says, I didn't decide yet on the theme of the book, but it will be about personal growth. Beautiful. Yeah, and I guess I would encourage you to refine that a little more based on what type of growth, what are the lessons, what are the specific experiences and stories that are contributing to the book, and what kind of growth comes out of those stories and out of those lessons. But I think that's a great place to start. Carmela says, thank you so much. I love the prompts. If you have more to help me write, I would appreciate it. Yeah, well, we do a lot of exercises like that in the 5-month program. I can put that in the follow-up email, the journaling prompts, just so you have them if you want to come back to the ones that we used tonight. I'm going to send the email in the morning just because it takes a little bit for the video to process, but you'll have those, and hopefully you'll be able to see what was on the screen if you go back to the video, if you weren't able to see it tonight. All right, so just don't forget to have an object ready for tomorrow that has something to do with one of the themes of your book. And I will be back here tomorrow at the same time, and looking forward to seeing you. Thank you for being here. All right, have a beautiful evening. I'll see you tomorrow.